Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. This video was requested by Raphael Drayton, and he wanted to know how to use one of these, which this is the angle gauge that I use for my fins. One of the best tools that you could possibly buy for surfboard repairs or surfboard shaping. So we'll do a quick little run through on at least my understanding of how to use it. Using it with surfboards is really limited because our cant angle on our fins really only ranges from 9 to 0 degrees. So we really only need to measure 9 to 0 degrees with our gauge, whereas it has the ability to do a full 180 this thing. They're cool little tools. I don't know exactly what they're used for outside of surfboard shaping, but they're super handy when it comes to surfboards. So let's have a look at some fins and we'll do a quick run through on how to read this thing. So having a little run through the tool itself, we have our adjustment wheel in the center here. So this allows us to change the angle and move it. And then when we've got the angle we want, we can tighten that down and it can't move anymore. So that kind of locks it into the angle you want. So there's kind of two purposes why we would use this tool in surfboards. Me, more so, it would be repairs. So if somebody has busted this fin box out and it needs replacing, I need to obviously match this side. And for those who don't know, a surfboard has a cant angle. So the fins aren't completely upright, they're actually at an angle. So I need to match that same angle. In the center fin, we want it straight up at 0 degrees. The side fins, like I said, are going to be anywhere from 0 to 9, more likely 3 to 9. So the first thing I look at if I'm repairing a fin box is, let's say this fin box here doesn't exist at the moment, so I need to check what angle it is. If we're installing future fin boxes, all of their boxes are set to 0, and the cant angle is actually built into the base of the fin, so we don't have to worry about it. If we're dealing with something like FCS2s, the angle is built into the box and the fins are straight. So we need to know what angle our box is at so that we can put the right box in this side when we do our replacement. So my first step is going to be to look inside the box, and I'm probably not even going to try and film it because I don't think you'll be able to see it. Maybe you can. At the bottom of the box, just to the right of my little finger, you can see the number 9 stamped into the box. So that will either say 9, 5, 3 or 0. This one here in the center will say, or should say, it does say 0. So that is 0 degrees. This one is 9 degrees. For our purposes with the surfboard, excuse me while I focus, we've got our 0 in the center here, and we've got that lined up with exactly 45. So for use with surfboards, that 45 is our 0. And because we're really only dealing with 9 to 0 degrees, we basically stop at 55. So that's 10 degrees. That's 0. And then we go to 50. That's 5 degrees. We go to another 5. That's our 10 degrees. We're never really going to go further than that unless we're dealing with a really funky board. So that's the only range we really use with setting cant angles on surfboard fins. So one of the best things about this tool is that you can check how good your favorite shapers and laminators really are. So if we set this fin in here, which I might not be able to do with the camera sitting there, I can. So now this should in theory be 9 degrees. So what I'm going to do is loosen off this tool so that it's nice and flexible. I'm going to push the bottom of it. So we're assuming the bottom of this is flat, and then we're going to push it until it's nice and snug up against the fin, and then we're going to lock it off. So let's change this number here, our 0. We're going to change it to P for pointer. So forget all these numbers. This is just our pointer. And this center line points to whatever angle we have measured. So our 0 is at 45 degrees here, and this fin that we've measured has moved all the way to here. So that's 5 degrees, 6, 7, 8. We're just shy by 1 degree. So these guys have actually misplaced their boxes by about 1 degree, which, I mean, that's pretty good. I wouldn't fault them for that. As long as the other one matches that 8 degrees. Now, because this box actually does exist, what we can do is put our other fin in, and we still have our gauge set to that 8 degrees, so we can just push it up against our fin and find out how accurate they are. So you can see at the bottom of the gauge there's a bit of a gap. It's not snug up against, whereas if I move this over to this side, that gap doesn't exist. So that tells me that these two fins have been installed at different angles. So then what I would do is we'll reset it or loosen it off so that we're floppy, can push it to our spot, tighten it up, and we'll see what that fin measures at. Remembering that our 0 is a P for pointer, this is our 0 here, and our last fin was 8 degrees. This one's actually more like 7. It's slightly over 7, between 7 and 8. So again, I wouldn't fault JS for this fin placement, but they are ever so slightly out. There are a few things that can affect these measurements. Number one would be if you've got resin on the bottom of your gauge, if there's a big lump of resin there from when you've been installing boxes, that of course is going to lift the gauge up slightly, so you're not going to be truly flat on the board. Same goes with your dummy fins as well. So if you have lumps of resin on the side of your fin, then this section here isn't going to be reading the fin properly because it might be pushing against a lump of resin. So keep that in mind. But the most common thing that's going to affect fin placement and consistency between fin cant angles is the concave of the board. So when we put our gauge down, we're assuming that we're working with a flat surface, but you may or may not be able to see, you should be able to see, this isn't a flat surface. Of course, we're higher in the center and we have a concave running through each side. So the back end of this board has a double concave. So that can affect your fin boxes and your angle as well. This concave is pretty mellow, and I would hope, because these are machine-made boards, that they're identical on both sides, so the concave shouldn't be too much of a factor. But certainly if you're dealing with hand shapes, the concave might be slightly deeper on this side than this side, so you're going to get a skewed reading with this. So what I would normally do with fin box repairs is I would take the angle of this side, I would lock my gauge in, because I know that this is the correct angle that they wanted, that the shaper wanted. So now we've got that angle locked in, so I won't be adjusting this again. So then when it comes time to installing the box here, when I've put my resin in, I've installed it, maybe I want some tape to hold it in place, I'm going to adjust the fin and the box until it matches our gauge. So I'm going to be copying that side exactly. If it's a 9-degree box and it's at 8 degrees, I'm going to copy it because I don't want to have a good install here and get it perfectly at 9, but then the other side's 8. That's rubbish on my part. So I'm going to copy whatever they've done, providing it's not completely out of whack. When it comes to center fins, it can be a little trickier, and especially if you're doing a board like, so Raphael's comment was on my video from glassing that fin onto that old Atlas board. So I was dealing with a hand-shaped fin, which probably isn't perfect. I'm also dealing with a really old hand-shaped board that had been repaired multiple times in that tail area. So it was unlikely that board was actually rolled. It had a convex, not a concave. So it was unlikely the fin and the board were perfect. So there's a few things you can do to combat that, but I do find that the center fins, can be the trickiest. So what I generally try to do if I'm doing a center fin is I can measure at 0 degrees, and that is perfectly on 0 degrees, which is pretty amazing, as long as it perfectly lines up on this side at 0 degrees, which it seems to. So this fin is actually perfect. Yep, can't fault that at all. Sometimes if the concave or convex in that Atlas's case is deep or really risen in a convex, you're not going to get 0 degrees. You might get the same reading both sides, but it might be 5 degrees, let's say. But as long as you're getting 5 degrees consistently on both sides, that means the fin is exactly the same on both sides. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish if I'm doing something like that Atlas fin. Or if I was installing on a board like this that had a really deep concave or a weird V, it was hand-shaped maybe. I'm going for consistency on both sides, but I don't pay much attention to the numbers. And in general, with fin box repairs, I don't pay much attention to what number it's pointing at. I only want to make sure that they're consistent. So both the side fins are using the same angle, whatever that reads, and the center fin is the same angle no matter what side I put the gauge on. So I'm not paying so much attention to those numbers. Something you can do for center fins and even side fins too, if you're dealing with extreme concaves, is use some shims. So these are just pieces of foam. So you can actually level the board. Let's say our side fins are over here. So you can put some shims in until your board's leveled out. And once it's leveled, then you can measure on that, and you know that you're not dealing with the concave so much. So let's have a look at a new board that hasn't had fin plugs installed yet. This is one of Justin's shapes. So I don't actually remember what Justin wanted angle-wise on this board. I'll find that out tomorrow. But I've got 5 degree fin boxes here. So we're just going to drop those 5 degree boxes straight in like this. And we'll give them a measure and see how close they are to 5 degrees and also how consistent they are. And we push it to meet the fin and lock that off. So that has come to, that's 7 degrees on the dot. So this one is 7 degrees. It's a little bit different. There's a gap at the bottom. There's some light coming through there, possibly you can see. So this one's different. So let's loosen it off again. So that was 7 degrees. This one here has come to 6. So there's a 1 degree difference. This is 1 degree less than that one. So not too shabby, not too bad at all. So what we could do is match that to this one to make it 6 degrees on both sides. That's acceptable, I would say. But what we can do now is set our gauge to 5 degrees, and let's see if it's possible to manipulate the fin and the box to meet 5, which is something we can do in glassing. So this one only has to go there. That's 5 degrees. The main thing I want to look for is that I'm not changing the angle so much on the box that it rises up too high so it's poking up above the foam. If the routes are done really well, then you won't have any play in the box like that, so this just won't be possible. But there is a little bit of play in Justin's routes, so we are able to do it. We can get to 5 degrees and the box is still good. So we can actually glass both of these in at perfectly 5 degrees. All I'm going to do is have this gauge set to 5 degrees because I know that's what I want. I'm going to fill my route with resin, and then I'm going to push it in, squeeze all that resin out, get it to the right height that I want. And then I know that both are going to need a slight bit of tweaking, so using a little bit of masking tape, all I've got to do is that and just mask it to that point. Once that resin's cured, it'll stay at that angle. Same with this one. So I hope that all made sense. In particular, Raph, I hope that made sense for you. If you got any other questions, feel free to ask in the comments. But like I say, essentially, your 45 is 0 and you're only working to 9 degrees at max, that's it. So all of this kind of stuff, it's not conducive to surfboards. So just before you go, guys, I would like to announce that as of 2 days ago, I got to 1,000 subscribers. I think today I'm on 1,015. So thank you guys for every time I said please subscribe, for doing it. I really appreciate that. The first big goal for YouTube was 1,000 subscribers. So if you're not aware of how this whole YouTube stuff works with monetization and advertisements and all that, essentially in order to monetize your channel you need 4,000 watch hours within a year, or the space of a year. So that's all you guys combined watching my videos that has now equated to about 5,000 hours altogether. So you guys have spent a lot of your life watching me fix surfboards. So I really appreciate that. And then 1,000 subscribers is the other requirement. So once you've got those 4,000 watch hours, the 1,000 subscribers, then you can apply for the partnership program, and if they accept you, if you're not saying crazy stuff online, then you can monetize your video and you get paid per views, or I think it's actually per views of the ads that pop up in the videos. So I'm going to have an ad every 30 seconds now in my videos. Thank you for all the support so far. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks for watching, and thanks for all the comments and the feedback. I did say when I got monetized, or when I got to 1,000 subscribers, I was going to make a crypto shitcoin small kind tokens, and I would pre-buy a bunch and then sell you guys tokens and then rug pull it, and I'd make a ton of cash, because that's just what influencers do nowadays, and I guess I'm officially an influencer. But I haven't had time to make a crypto token, so for now, if you just keep watching the videos, that would be really appreciated. And if you've got any more questions, like I said, ask in the comments, and that's it. I'll let you know when the token's available. Nice one, guys. Hope you're well, and cheerio!